Welcome to the fourth and final episode of my journey through the films of 1977. Of the 46 movies I watched, here are my top 10 favorites, which starts with Oh God! A charming comedy that shows us what might happen if God appeared to one of us today. What results is a fun, wholesome journey where newcomer John Denver gets to be the straight man to film veteran George Burns. As a church leader and student of theology, God's answers and explanations are the highlight of the film for me. At number 9 is Saturday Night Fever. This has such an iconic soundtrack that I've been listening to all my life. The disco scenes lived up to the hype, but the rest of the time it was a much grittier film than I expected. John Travolta's character attempts to rise above his dysfunctional family, his idiot friends, and his rough neighborhood. At his lowest moments, his decisions are difficult to watch, but we somehow manage to root for him through it all. My 8th favorite film of the year is another televised miniseries, Roots. This epic story presented over 7 generations of family stories, featuring some of the finest actors of the time. Most of America tuned in as Roots holds the record for the second most watched series finale in history. Working under the constraints of a television budget, they were still able to bring Alex Haley's book to life in powerful ways. Number 7 is another made-for-TV project, Emmett Otter's Jug Band Christmas. Despite being a huge Muppet fan, this was never really part of my childhood, but I loved it as an adult. The story has a folksy charm to it and features a great lineup of songs from Paul Williams, who would go on to write Rainbow Connection and many other Muppet favorites. The highlight here is When the River Meets the Sea, which is also covered later on John Denver and the Muppets: A Christmas Together. My 6th favorite film of 77 is Slapshot, a hilarious take on the world of minor league hockey. It's a cult classic and considered one of the best sports movies of all time, and for good reasons, particularly every moment that the Hanson brothers are on screen. Leading off the top 5 is Best Picture nominee The Goodbye Girl. I knew nothing about this movie going in, but out of nowhere this Neil Simon romantic comedy won me over. Richard Dreyfuss won Best Actor for this one, and I can't blame the voters. It's a charming story written by a master of the craft. At number 4 is Pumping Iron. I loved this film so much. Before we knew them as actors, Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno were competitive bodybuilders given the spotlight in this documentary. It's an excellent look at that culture and the intense focus it took to be successful. Arnold is particularly cocky throughout the movie, and he works hard to psych out his competition. Close Encounters of the Third Kind is at number 3. It was apparently a great year for Richard Dreyfuss. This movie is so good and displays such an early confidence from Steven Spielberg that will manifest itself time and time again. It's perfectly paced, particularly at the intense beginning, and then again at the gently serene ending. The Academy's Best Picture winner is in my number 2 spot, Woody Allen's Annie Hall. And this is one of his finest. The writing and the acting are top-notch. It's a beautiful portrait of love, philosophy, cultural identity, psychoanalysis, personality, and more. Despite being a couple that doesn't work out, this pairing of Diane Keaton and Woody Allen makes for an outstanding film. And now, for my favorite film of 1977, and possibly all time, yes, Star Wars. This little science fiction fantasy adventure is where the famous franchise began. I personally live and breathe Star Wars and have for as long as I can remember. It was such a game changer that it's hard to imagine life before droids, lightsabers, X-Wings, the Force, and one of the most iconic villains of all time, Darth Vader. Writer-director George Lucas has tinkered with the film a few times through the years, but I made sure to watch the original 1977 version, back before they even decided to call it Episode 4, A New Hope. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If there's anything on the list that you've never seen, then by all means make plans for a movie night this week. The albums of 1977 will be up next. See you then. Thanks.
falling.